I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. After finally sitting down and watching a lot more film on this draft class, even more than I already watched when I did my individual breakdowns for every draft pick. Now I'm ready to hit y'all with my Commanders 2025 NFL Draft review, and I'm going to give you the grade at the very end. Again, I've watched a lot more tape on these guys even since just a week ago. I have 8 or more main takeaways, depends on how you want to divide them up. And we got to talk about how this is the most athletic class in the entire NFL. You know I have ridiculous amounts of advanced stats. I can't wait. But before we get into everything, first of all, I have a trivia question for you. I will give you the answer at the end of the video. On this date in 1959, Pro Football Hall of Fame guard Russ Grimm was born in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. What was the famous nickname of the Washington offensive line on which Grimm started from 1981 to 1991? We all know that answer, but still, I'll give you the answer at the end of the video. Man, that one was too easy, man. Make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make you stay tuned to all of the content. I'm working on so many videos. Like I already told y'all, man, I'm working on a breakdown for all of the undrafted free agents. I'm going to give you the full list, and even if we just do like a quick run of this undrafted free agent, strengths, weaknesses, chance of making the roster, team fit, and we'll just do that for every single guy, so stay tuned for that. I'm also working on putting together like everybody, like all of the experts review of our draft class as well. Stay tuned for that. Power rankings, I'm seeing some people, like some articles and experts are already starting to put those together for how they feel about teams after the draft. We're probably even higher than you expect. I'm working on that as well, so stay tuned for all of those videos and film sessions for the draft class exclusively only for channel members. Without further ado, let's go and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, first main takeaway, and I'm not even just gonna keep saying first, second, third, fourth. I'm just gonna unleash all of my takeaways for this draft class. And again, I'm gonna give you my grade at the end, and I also, even after I give you my grade, I also want to dive into how some Commanders fans and reporters felt about the draft class, and we're gonna go through and see if we agree or disagree with any of their points, because I'm pretty sure I don't completely agree with every point that they're gonna bring up, and I'm going blindly into these too. So I like saw that the title or like the tweet, the beginning of it, and then I was like, all right, I'm not gonna look at and actually break down what they've done already. I'm waiting until I see it live with y'all as I'm looking at it for this video. So I have not prepared myself for those opinions yet. You'll get my live reactions to those. But now for my first point. First of all, I love how they firmly believe they took the best players available with every single pick. I mean, you could just tell by action, not even just words, because we clearly had a need for a pass rushing edge rusher. Clearly. It was easily our biggest need going into the draft. But instead of reaching for an edge at a pick that didn't make sense based on what was available, there weren't a lot of good ones left after certain points in the draft. I mean, really, except for the first round, honestly, they went with another position with each pick, with players that they felt like were the best available players at that point in time. I mean, they really followed their big board. Did you hear Adam Peters tell like Josh Connolly that they were starting to get nervous when the Bears were picking? That, oh man, Josh Connolly may go before even the 15th pick. They felt like they hit a lottery with the fact that Josh Connolly made it to the 29th pick in the first round. They felt like once that tackle went in the teens, they thought it was going to be a run on tackles and Josh Connolly was going to be one of the ones taken. And you could just tell how much they liked him because they took him over who a lot of people prefer in Josh Simmons. And then even Trey Amos. I mean, most people, even like the experts, this is not even a Commanders thing. Forget Adam Peters and those guys for a minute. How about every expert out there feels like Trey Amos had no business making it to the 61st pick, and most people felt like if we would have taken him in the 29th overall pick in the first round, nobody would have batted an eye, nobody would have questioned it. And so again, you may not necessarily agree with their big board, but you cannot hate them for following their own big board and sticking to it. And how can we not give this regime of any of them the benefit of the doubt? How could you ever see a team go from 4 wins to 14 in one off season, taking over for all of the trash and the waste of picks that Rivera had, all of these first round picks? I mean, just think about like the hole they had to dig themselves out of. Because if you really think about it, all of the picks that we missed on, those great talents went to other teams. So, for example, we skipped on Kyle Hamilton for Jahan Dotson. Kyle Hamilton's over there balling out for the Ravens. Just imagine if Kyle Hamilton was on this team right now, how different our team would be. So it's not even like they got an average team. They got a below average team that was literally throwing away picks, more specifically throwing away first round picks before they got there. They came to a team where the previous, 4 first round picks are like all gone, basically, or at least they cut them shortly after they got here with trading away Jahan Dotson and Emmanuel Forbes. So, I mean, the job to take that team from 4 and then cutting a couple of first rounders, trading one, cutting. Jamin Davis, too, had to cut him. And then to take that team in one off season with a rookie quarterback and an entirely new coaching staff, front office, everything, 14 wins NFC Championship game. How is there any way that us as fans, even if they didn't necessarily do what you wanted them to do, how can we just assume that we're right and they're wrong? I mean, yeah, I know we need an edge rusher bad coming into the draft, specifically a pass rusher, but I love the fact that they didn't force it and draft like a mid-edge rusher just for the sake of trying to fill a perceived need. Like, oh, we got an edge rusher. He may not necessarily be a good one, but we needed an edge rusher and we took one. I would hate that, and I'm so happy they didn't do that. And Adam Peters even said it himself. He said, quote, after we drafted Trey Amos in the second round, he said, we feel like we got 2 players that are first round quality. And I definitely agree, and most experts agree. And I thought it was funny, too, because after we took Trey Amos in the second round, since we didn't have a third round pick, you know, some people were thinking, oh, maybe they trade back up, you know, to get a third round pick so that we're not done with the entire day 2 of the draft. This man went and started having a press conference. We knew, oh, yeah, we're done. If Adam Peters is having a press conference, he's not even in the draft room listening to phone calls. We're done for the night. By the time near the end of the round 2, we saw this man having a press conference. We knew round 3, there was nothing to be had for us, and just go ahead and pack it up and get ready for round 4 on Saturday. I thought that was funny. Now, another takeaway is that it's crazy when you have a team that just went to the NFC Championship game and you still got way better after that. Between free agency signings, trading for a top 3 tackle in Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel, and even after all of that, NFC Championship game, a lot of free agents brought in, traded for Laramie Tunsil and Deebo Samuel, and you still feel like every draft pick has an honest chance to make the final 53-man roster, which is incredible. With a 6th and a 7th rounder, you feel like all of them have honest, real shots at making this roster. Some bigger shots, lower shots than others, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like we wasted any pick. Even Kane Madrano, who I would argue probably has the least chance of making the roster out of this entire draft class, I still really like his chances because of his coverage ability. He has a knack for taking the ball away. His tackling, pretty terrible right now, but who better than Bobby Wagner in your same linebacker room and Dan Quinn as your head coach, as a defensive-minded head coach, to teach you how to tackle better, man? Like, what better situation could Kane Madrano have even gone to? Plus, when in doubt, worst-case scenario, I could see him being an elite special teamer and the replacement for Nick Bellore once, you know, him being 35 years old, a Pro Bowl special teamer, but eventually he's going to hang up the cleats, and Kane Madrano's probably going to be the guy that takes over his spot. So I just feel like it's amazing that, again, NFC Championship game, you add a bunch of talent in free agency, you trade for a bunch of talent, and then you go into the draft and still find a way to come away with guys that you feel like all of them have a real shot at making the team is crazy. And then next up, probably my favorite takeaway out of all of them, every draft pick helps the guys around them in their position group. Let's start first of all. Walk with me. Josh Connolly makes the most important player on the entire team better than Jaden Daniels. Let's get that out the way. But back to my main point, he makes the entire O-line better. First of all, he moves Brandon Coleman to guard, where I feel like his highest ceiling is. I believe Coleman could be a good tackle. I mean, again, he pretty much erased Trey Hendrickson from the game that they played against the Bengals in week 3. And Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks, had even more than Myles Garrett, any other edge rusher in the NFL. So Brandon Coleman is there. Good tackle, but I believe he could be like a potentially elite guard. I think he has Pro Bowl, maybe even All-Pro potential at guard. And so going from a top 15 offensive line, and just by drafting Josh Connolly, and you could also throw in trading for Laramie Tunsil as well, you take that top 15 offensive line from last year, and you move 2 starters, your starting left guard and Nick Allegretti, and your starting right tackle and Andrew Wiley, and now they're on the bench. So he just made the entire offensive line better just by getting drafted here. And then how about Cosme? Having somebody that athletic next to him, the guy that erased Abdul Carter from a game, the guy that literally made Abdul Carter have the worst edge rusher game he had all last season. And it's not even like it was like early in the season. This was not, oh, okay, Abdul Carter's just getting used to playing edge rusher. No, this was like, I think the final game that Penn State played all season. I think it was the Big Ten Championship, something like that. And that boy erased him from that game. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's going to make Samuel Cosme better as well, because he's not going to have to do two people's jobs. Andrew Wiley, you know what I'm saying, shouts out to him and bless his heart. He did the best he could, but you could tell sometimes Cosme had to like overcompensate and do his job and do a little bit of Andrew Wiley's as well. You could leave Josh Connolly on the island, especially in pass protection, and Cosme could just focus solely on what he needs to do, his sole specific responsibility. He's gonna ball out. And also Cliff Kingsbury won't have to ask tight ends, running backs, and wide receivers to help double team or chip block as much as last year to help out both Brandon Coleman at left tackle and Andrew Wiley at right tackle. Now we could just leave all of our offensive linemen on islands, and our skill position players can now be options in the passing game, not only more often, but also sooner in the plays. Again, you had a lot of times where running backs, tight ends, and even wide receivers like Luke McCaffrey would have to come in and chip the edge rusher, then start running their route. They're already like a second or two behind in their route running because they had to help Andrew Wiley and Brandon Coleman not get beat immediately, which would have gotten Jaden Daniels killed. Now we don't have to worry about that. And then how about Trey Amos? He allows Mike Sainristil to kick back inside the slot corner where he's at his best. Of course, you naturally get better when you add a first-round talent outside cornerback on your roster just in general, but it also makes Sainristil better because just like Brandon Coleman with guard and tackle, I feel like Mike Sainristil is a solid outside corner. You saw that all last year, just like you saw all last year with Brandon Coleman. But now we're going to have Sainristil back at his natural position of slot corner, and I think he can be elite at that. I think he has the potential to be a top 2, top 3 slot corner in the entire NFL. And so now he's at a position where he's going to be better. He's going to be more productive. And then how about Jaylin Lane as well, our 4th-round pick wide receiver? I mean, of course, naturally he makes us better by just wearing 3 hats. He's our starting punt returner. He's your starting slot receiver, I believe. Maybe not week 1, but at some point this season. And he's also immediately our best deep threat opposite of Terry McLaurin. But also, that deep threat ability will make it where defenses can't solely focus on stopping Terry from beating them deep. So now Terry should be able to run free and take the lid off of the defense just a little bit more often now that there's a true threat opposite of him and Jaylin Lane on the field at the same time. Because De'Ami Brown was our deep threat opposite of Terry McLaurin last year, and he runs like a 4-4 something. Jaylin Lane runs a real 4-3-4, and he looks like it on tape. He's not Matthew Golden, where nobody knows how he ran that 40 time because he's nowhere near that fast on tape. Jaylin Lane is that fast on tape. Jaylin Lane is easily faster than Matthew Golden. And also, Jaylin Lane's pure slot ability allows Deebo Samuel to move around the offense more and allow Cliff Kingsbury to get the most out of him by creating different, unique mismatches and all types of things that they could do with him on a play-by-play basis with just that movement of, okay, Deebo Samuel's your chess piece. You can move him anywhere because of the fact that Jaylin Lane can handle slot duties. Now that we have a pure slot in Jaylin Lane, Deebo Samuel won't be forced to be in the slot more than he wants to. He could just be there occasionally to confuse defenses, but before Jaylin Lane, who was about to be our starting slot receiver? It was more than likely going to have to be Deebo, even if he didn't necessarily want it to be. Now Deebo has the freedom to even line up behind the line of scrimmage as much as he wants. Because now you have Terry X, Noah Brown Z, Jaylin Lane slot, and Deebo Samuel. Do whatever you want to do. Do what makes you best. And then how about Kane Madranos? Now this is more of an optimistic look, but still he's an elite athlete, and that could potentially allow him to be on the field at the same time as guys as like Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. Maybe especially if you're looking at him as like a box safety, and he can handle what they aren't best at. Coverage. If Kane gets more instinct and nuance and definitely learns how to tackle way better than what he currently does and a better understanding of defenses, he can see the field often just because he allows Wagner and Louvu to focus on what they do best, stopping the run and blitzing the quarterback. That's their strongest parts of their games. And them getting back in coverage is not. So if Kane, and it's a really big if, learns how to tackle and gets good enough to play on actual defense, not just special teams, he can make both Wagner and Louvu better at what they do just by allowing them to do what they do best more often. I think that's, again, really optimistic view, but I'm telling you. And then lastly, Jakori. If he becomes who I truly believes he will become, our lead back, he would make B-Rob better just by us needing B-Rob way less often. less carries. Allow B-Rob to come into the game in specific situations that he's better at, short yardage situations, and B-Rob with less carries will more than likely be a healthier B-Rob that can actually be healthy and durable late in the seasons when we need him. He's always banged up late in the season. It seems like by like week 8 or 9, it's just he's constantly on the injury report. And shouts out to him because he toughs it out. He fights through injuries, and I'm pretty sure he plays in a lot of pain that most of us would not be willing to play through. So shouts out to B-Rob, but Jakori could keep B-Rob a little bit cleaner, less mileage, less carries throughout the season, and then you could probably have a B-Rob throughout the entire season. Again, only short yardage situations, and just take, hey, B-Rob, you just take a back seat real quick, stay fresh, and stay efficient longer in the season. And then moving on to another main takeaway. I also love how the Commanders have so many connections to the players, like specifically, like the pride that they took in the fact that they got a 6th round linebacker from UCLA in Kane Medrano. Remember, his linebackers coach at UCLA in 2023 is our current linebackers coach in Ken Norton Jr. And then not only did we get Kane Medrano in the 6th round, but then we also brought in like an additional 2 or 3 more undrafted free agents from UCLA. And it's not only just Ken Norton Jr. that's a Bruin. General Manager Adam Peters is also a Bruin. So you can tell that Adam Peters and Ken Norton Jr. were just really happy to bring in these guys, especially Kane Medrano when they called him. I'm sure the vast majority of it was because they believe in his talent, of course, athleticism, potential, all of that. But I'm also sure Kane being from UCLA added the cherry on top to their excitement of, man, we got one of our guys to come in. So I love that. That's not like a huge takeaway. That's not a necessity, but that's a nice little extra, again, like a cherry on top to some of my takeaways from this draft class. Also, another takeaway, this regime will not make the same mistakes as the previous one. That's one of my biggest takeaways. First of all, I know Jaylin Lane is 5'10", but I don't think people understand that he and Trey Amos are 30 pounds heavier than Emmanuel Forbes ever was. No more players that are too light for the NFL level. No more Jahan Dotsons that are not willing to block. I don't think people have noticed and actually really watched this tape outside of just looking up his highlights on YouTube. But Jaylin Lane is a willing blocker. I think the best way to describe him is take Olamide Zaccheaus, make him way faster, way quicker, and stronger. Literally, I mean, he and potentially better hands as well. Now, Olamide Zaccheaus, the only thing he's probably ahead of in Jaylin Lane right now, I would say, and this is because Jaylin Lane is just now coming out of college, he's not coming from a great offensive system or anything like that, is route running. Once Jaylin Lane learns how to route run to the level of an Olamide Zaccheaus, or even better, which I potentially think he will get to, especially with Wes Welker on the coaching staff to help develop that, he's going to be Olamide Zaccheaus times 3 easily. I don't even think it's going to be close. And again, this guy is not small. He's 5'10", but he's 190 pounds, man. Also, secondly, foreshadowing an elite athlete point that I'm going to make later, just to give you the heads up, this team refuses to draft slow and unathletic guys, man. The last regime didn't prioritize athletes, and that's why we always felt like a slower and less physical team than our opponents most Sundays. And third, going back to the reaching point, this regime will never, or at the very least, rarely, from what I've seen so far, reach for needs. They haven't done it yet. Hopefully they never do it, but the way that they handle all needs, to at least to a certain extent in free agency, then they get to the draft, they're going purely for ceiling, potential, and elite traits and talents in the draft. Who's the player that has the most potential to be a game changer at his respective position at every single pick when the guys are available? We're not, just because we feel like we need this position more, we're just going to reach for a guy that's all right at it because we just need to fill that role. Nope. Give me the elite player at any other position, and then we'll just figure it out. That's what coaching is for. And then also, just like I foreshadowed, my next main takeaway, I love how we assembled a group of elite athletes again. And like I've been screaming, the Commanders handle business in free agency to establish a certain floor across the board to make sure we have no glaring holes and weaknesses going into the draft so we can acquire as much ceiling as possible. You get the floor in free agency before the draft, you get the ceiling in the draft, your long-term answers. That's why I love the fact that we're drafting potential game changers and pro bowlers as often as possible. We're not just getting guys because we have a need there. But for the second year in a row, the Commanders draft class has the highest collective relative athletic score. If you don't want to believe me, he said it at Math Bomb Kent Lee Platt himself. He even tweeted, time for the team rankings for RAS in 2025. He even pointed out the fact that every team tried to get more athletic this season. But this is a great way to show which teams prioritize athletic traits more in their draft evaluations. This year, we'll also be adding in undrafted free agents who ranked right where you'd expect. But I love the fact that he pointed out the fact that overall across the entire NFL, everybody drafted for athleticism more this year, and still the Commanders ended up being number one. And in that, he said, kicking us off are the Commanders, who ranked first in 2024, and then again this year lead the pack with an average 8.986 relative athletic score. It should be way higher because Jakori, I don't know what he did when he was doing his agility stuff. He looks like the most agile running back in this class when you're watching tape. I'm shocked that he tested that poorly at his pro day with all his agility stuff. So my point is, our relative athletic score should be even higher than that, and we still are number one in the NFL even without that. And they also said with every one of their players qualifying and all of them falling into elite range of at least over 8. We didn't get anybody with an 8 or lower. You had to have at least more than an 8 relative athletic score, and I love that. And as a visual way to look at it, this is how athletic our draft class is right here. Now, shouts out to the Vikings. They were a little close. But no cigar, you know what I'm saying? Shouts out to us for getting the most athletic draft class in the entire NFL. And I know y'all see them Cowboys down there, right? The least athletic draft class in the entire NFL. I love it, man. Shouts out to the Cowboys for getting slower. Shouts out to the Commanders for getting faster and more athletic and more physical. And then also, I'm sure that these relative athletic score charts aren't the end-all be-all for the Commanders' decision-making process and scouting. But you don't end up with the number one most athletic class 2 years in a row. Mind you, 2 for 2 ever since they've gotten here. It's not like they were here 5 years ago and they just recently started to do this. 2 for 2. The 2 years they've been here, they've done it twice without at least looking at it and considering it. Like, this is definitely deliberate. I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Peters sees the fact that he won the most athletic draft class again and then he smiles about it when he's at his desk or something like that. I mean, check this out. Josh Connolly, with his 1.71 10-yard split at the combine, was the fastest among all offensive linemen, tackles, centers, guards, whatever. Trey Amos ran a 4.43 at the 40-yard combine, and I still think he's faster than that on tape. Jaylin Lane was a 4.3 4.40 at the combine, 8th fastest overall, and he also had like elite testing numbers in other categories where he was like top 3 in different things. I don't know why that wasn't necessarily included in this chart right here. Then came Medrano. He was the fastest 40 time out of all linebackers and also reached a max speed of 20.03 miles per hour in the East-West Shrine Bowl, was the fastest among all defensive players. Forget linebacker, forget defensive line, forget corner, forget safety. The fastest player at the East-West Shrine Bowl, period. And also the second fastest overall, including all positions, even the offensive side of the ball. And then Jakori Merritt. I mean, again, we're going to dive into him later because, you know, you'll see soon. You'll see very soon, actually. And then even if you take a different department group of experts, instead of using math bombs, relative athletic score, how about next gen stats? Again, they usually do theirs off of what they see on tape and not necessarily the combine results. And at the very least, we still have the 5th highest, at least, well, tied for 4th highest, most athletic draft class in the entire NFL. So no matter where you look at it, we have, if not the most athletic draft class, one of the most athletic draft classes. And again, Jakori, I don't know what happened with his test on that agility, but he's way more agile than he tested. And then lastly, I also want to point out the fact you got to include this in your takeaway. I feel like you got to include this even in your grading. You have to remember to include Lattimore, Tunsil, and Deebo Samuel to our draft class. You have to. Trading them away is why you didn't have a 3rd rounder nor a 4th rounder, and is the reason that you weren't able to get one of the edge rushers that you wanted. Because if we had a 3rd rounder, we more than likely are able to at least get Kyle Kennard or Braden Swinson or somebody at edge that I really wanted. So really the draft class is Josh Connolly, then Trey Amos, and who was, again, another 1st round pick talent. That's 2 1st round talents that you got in the first 2 rounds. Then Marshawn Lattimore, then half of what you gave up for the Laramie Tunsil trade, then Jaylin Lane, then Deebo Samuel, then Kane Medrano, and then very possibly the steal of the entire draft in Jakori Merritt. And you know what? How about one last point, especially before we move on to what I feel like is the biggest steal of not only our draft class, but potentially the entire draft out of all teams and all picks. This draft, and really this entire offseason, has been dedicated to prioritizing making Jaden Daniels' job way easier. And how can you not love that, man? That man carried an average team, lacking a lot of talent in a big way on both sides of the ball, especially on his side of the ball, and Adam all the way to a championship game, NFC championship, and Adam Peters awarded him by saying, all right, I'm happy you are an elite quarterback already, but we hope you never have to carry a roster like that again. Not only did they trade for a top 3 tackle in Laramie Tunsil, they got a top weapon in Deebo Samuel. But hey, also, how about we go spend a first-round pick on an offensive tackle rather than a pass rusher? And then Jaylin Lane in the 4th round to help Jaden Daniels' starting field positioning as a returner, and also give him a way better deep ball threat. Again, Jaden Daniels is a top 5 deep ball thrower, I feel like, in the NFL. I feel like he's a top 5 quarterback, period, but at the very least, top 7 deep ball thrower. What a shame it would have been to have Terry McLaurin as your only deep ball option in your receiver room. So now you at least have 2 with Jaylin Lane. I mean, you could just tell Adam Peters went into this offseason like, hey, Jaden Daniels was out there killing himself to carry this team. Hopefully, he never has to play like that again. I mean, you know, the mobility is great. And, you know, the elite playmaking ability, off-schedule stuff, great. But we shouldn't need it. You know, we want it, but we shouldn't need it like we did last year, man. And the way that the team let him down in an NFC championship game where he was almost perfect. The team just kept fumbling around him. The defense couldn't get a stop. And so at the very least, our offense is going to be ridiculous. And then, again, how about getting a running back as talented as Jakori to force defenses as well to help Jaden Daniels? Because now they're going to have to focus on stopping the run more than they ever did last year, which would make Jaden unstoppable. Imagine Jaden ever having a running back that defenses have to game plan against. He's going to carve defenses up if you're not focusing all your capital and focus on stopping Jaden Daniels. If you even have to focus just a couple of guys, stack the box ever to stop our running back situation. And I think Jakori, Krosky, Merritt can force those type of things, you know, game plans into opposing defenses. Jaden Daniels' job is going to be so much easier, man. And again, even just Deebo Samuel specifically with the offseason, I mean, to get a guy that you can give the ball in the backfield and then he makes something shake on his own. Remember, Jaden Daniels last year had to, I don't know the exact stat, but just from watching him, he had to have led the NFL in throws to receivers and then they get tackled at the 1-yard line. Or how about the percentage of throws that are touchdowns that he had to throw into the end zone to get, rather than throw it into the receiver or the playmaker and then they run it in themselves? Jaden Daniels, almost all of his touchdowns, he had to like literally throw the ball into the end zone where the receiver had to catch it, no yak after that. And so a guy like Deebo Samuel, Jakori Krosky, Jaylin Lane, all of those guys are going to help. And now, moving on from my main takeaways, how about my steal of the entire draft? This boy Jakori crazy, man. Come on, stop playing with him, man. This is not your typical 7th rounder. Shouts out to Ryan Cooley for pointing out the fact that in 2023, his last full season of playing college football, he was 6th out of the entire country with 6.3 yards per carry. He was 8th in 3.98 yards per carry after contact. He was 5th in 92.5 rushing grade. He was 6th in 134.8 elusiveness rating. He was 16th in 64 missed tackles forced, and he was 3rd in a 92.7 overall grade. That is not a 7th round player, man. At worst, his 64 missed tackles in 2023 was ranked 16th. Everything else is ranked 8th or above, even top 3, top 5 in different categories. Insane. And then how about this guy went to the East-West Shrine Bowl and dominated. 11 carries, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 11 carries, y'all, because it's the East-West Shrine Bowl. You're not going to sit here and get a ridiculous amount of carries and touches as a receiver and things like that. Not even the quarterbacks are going to get a lot of throws because they're trying to rotate in a lot of different guys to make sure everybody gets their chances to show what they could do. That's the point of these Shrine Bowls, the Senior Bowl, all of that type of stuff. So 11 carries, and to make the most of it and still find a way to get 97 yards and 2 touchdowns is insane. And then shouts out to Zebra Sports, because ever since they've tracked max acceleration and de-acceleration, Shrine Bowl wise since 2023, Senior Bowl since 2018, among all running backs in that time frame from both the Shrine Bowl and Senior Bowl since 2018, he had the 6th all-time in max acceleration, but 1st all-time in max de-acceleration. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what happened with his relative athletic score with that agility. As you can see on the screen right now, I don't get it. Because he's one of the most agile running backs I've seen come out of a draft in a couple of years. Like, including this draft class, maybe a couple of others you could throw in there. He's one of the most agile, freaky change of direction guys I've seen. So his relative athletic score should be even higher than that because his agility graded terribly. I don't know what he did at his pro day, but you watch him on tape and this guy is, I mean, freakishly agile, man. I mean, how about he had the third highest avoided tackle rate in this entire 2024 draft class? How about when facing stacked boxes, Jakori had the highest rushing success rate at 59% out of all running backs in this class. And he also had an avoided tackle rate of 42% as well. That is insane. That literally sounds like first round talent when it comes to the advanced stats, man. That's ridiculous. And I would also even argue that he's at worst top 5 in this draft class in contact balance. You can maybe even make an argument that he's only behind Ashton Jeanty when it comes to contact balance category. He may even have more than Amarian Hampton, and I think excluding Jakori, I think it's like Amarian and Ashton Jeanty in their own tier. I think Jakori's at least in that tier, even if you want to put him behind Jeanty and Amarian. I mean, he's insane with the contact balance. So you already have the ridiculous missed tackle force rate. Again, number 1 out of all running backs in this class against stacked boxes. Insane. Then the best deceleration out of this entire draft class in the past few years, since 2018, since they've been measuring it. And shouts out to Tyler Warden. He pointed out the fact that Arizona running back Jakori hits Phil Yates' best value picks from the 2025 NFL Draft. Phil Yates said, quote, "He has a very intriguing combination of size, speed, and overall footwork, but he must develop his instincts and vision. He's a moldable player for the Commanders to develop." A lot of guys are really high on him, and I'm not the only one that's out there saying, hey, this guy may potentially be the steal of the draft. And just going back to 2023 and his last season of football, this guy had 200 plus yards each of his last 2 games, the last full season that he played again in 2023. He had 442 rushing yards in total between those last 2 games, 3 touchdowns, 269 yards after contact, 5.1 yards after contact per attempt, 17 missed tackles forced, and 18 runs of 10 plus yards, just the final 2 games combined. So you can tell that he was just starting to heat up and find his real rhythm towards the end of the 2023 season. And then he went into 2024 ready to make himself a round 1 through 3 player. And then his former team snitched on him after he transferred from them and then put up a monster game against them the first game of the 2024 season, which ended up being the last game he played for the rest of the season. He was forced to miss the entire season after some eligibility issues came up. Again, you could tell his previous team snitched on him. And then the next time we finally see him play football, again, he played week 1 of the college football season last year. We don't see him again until the East-West Shrine Bowl, and he goes up there and wins MVP and looks like the best player by far at the showcase. I ain't gonna lie, if I was one of the players at the Shrine Bowl, I would have been mad. Like, come on, who invited this guy? Why is he even here? He's making us look bad, man. I'm trying to get drafted, and you out here got this first round, at worst third round talent out here showing off against us and making us look crazy. And then you also have some people out here trying to comp him to Travion Henderson, especially in athleticism. And I can kind of see it, but again, I'm ignoring the agility stuff because he's arguably one of the most agile running backs we've seen come out of the college in years. And so ignore that. So his score should already just be higher than that just in general. And then also, if you notice, even though Travion ran a .02 faster 40-yard time, the thing that's most important for running backs is honestly that 10-yard split and 20-yard split. And Jakori killed Travion in that. And then he also had a way better vertical, so he's more explosive than Travion as well. I'm telling y'all, this is potentially going to want to be one of the biggest steals of the entire draft. I'm putting my name next to it. And I know he needs to improve his blocking, but he just wasn't necessarily asked to do it much. I would say the same thing with his receiving ability. He hasn't done it a lot, which is why people are nervous about him, but it's not like he can't. If you go look at his highlights, he catches the ball with his hands like a receiver. I'm not sure necessarily about his route running, but he's really fast, and if he's open and the ball is up there, he's gonna catch. I think he made like a contested catch in the back of the end zone while getting hit one time and held on to the ball. So I'm not worried about his receiving ability, and especially with Anthony Lynn on our coaching staff as our run game coordinator and running backs coach, he can teach Jakori to become a better pass blocker because he's willing. I saw this one clip from an all-22 tape thing where like he completely like I mean, he basically ran into a blitzing, I think it was a linebacker or something like that. And not only did he do a good job of like putting his body on the line to take the guy out so his quarterback had more time to throw the ball, but also while he's going into him, he's lifting up. So like as he's basically tackling him without his arms, you know, because you can't, that would be a holding penalty. He's also lifting up to make sure that the guy has no chance of being on the ground. And then by the time the guy finally recovers off after the Jakori hit that got laid on him, the quarterback's already thrown the ball and he's safe to go. So you can see the potential and traits for him to be a better pass blocker and a better third down option in the receiving game as well. You see the traits is there. Just coach it up and get it more out of him. I think this offseason, he'll already be a back that he could be out there on the field every down. I think the pass protection may take longer, but the third down receiving ability is definitely there. And then on top of that, I love his mentality. After we drafted him, he said his goal is to make the defender not want to tackle you. And he says that he wants to go out and run with anger. Those are his like exact quotes, man. And I love that because this guy is, again, like I've already said multiple times, he's one of the most elusive running backs to come out of college in years. And yet mentally, the way that he wants to play the game, he wants to run through people so much, but that by the time we get near the end of the game, we get to the fourth quarter, and these guys are making business decisions because they know you're coming. That Marshawn Lynch mentality of the over and over and over, whatever that was, that's the type of mentality Jakori has while also being extremely agile and extremely quick. It's insane. And yeah, my last point with him, I know he's older for a running back coming out of the draft, but he only had 88 carries in his first 2 years. And again, he only played in one game in 2024. So he still has a lot of tread on his tires. I know he's older by age, but not by carries and by body punishment at all. This is not Jonathan Taylor coming out of college with extreme, unnecessary amounts of carries on him going into the NFL, which is why he keeps getting hurt at the NFL level. He came through already fairly damaged goods, an elite prospect, but damaged goods. This boy Jakori is coming to the NFL fresh. I mean, again, for him to play week 1 and then not play any football again until the East-West Shrine Bowl well after the season, and for him to still look that fresh, insane. Like the fact that he even had his body prepared to go out there and do that, insane. Like that's ridiculous discipline. The fact that he stuck around, even though he wasn't eligible to play, he stuck around and was on his team's practice squad, knowing every week when we get to Saturday, he's not going to be able to play. He was still putting in the work. That's dedication. He is a Dan Quinn guy. The guys that Joe Wood Jr. wants on defense, Jakori is that on offense, man. I love it. Now, moving on, I also want to throw in there the player that I think fans are probably sleeping on the most. That's another category I have right here, especially since a lot of y'all wanted other players that were available when we took this guy, Jaylin Lane. I feel like I need to show him a little bit of love because, first of all, if you take a look on the screen right now, when we're talking about athletic profile, we're talking about a faster, 20 pounds heavier Deshaun Jackson, more explosive too with the broad jump. And even though you don't have Deshaun Jackson's 3-cone and short shuttle right there for some reason, that boy Jaylin Lane did have faster times with both of those as well. So we're talking about a quicker, more explosive, very, very minuscule level of faster, but more than 20 pounds heavier version of Deshaun Jackson. When we're talking about a moldable player, I'm not saying he's Deshaun Jackson, because Deshaun Jackson, the one thing that's probably slept on the most with this game was his elite ball tracking ability to find the ball with his back to the ball. Insane stuff that like only a handful of guys in the NFL could ever do that at the same time. Like that's what separates him from all of these other speed demons and deep threats in NFL history. That's why he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. Jaylin Lane may not necessarily have that, but the athletic profile is literally faster, more explosive, quicker Deshaun Jackson at even 20 pounds heavier. And then also taking a look at these athletic profiles. Shouts out to Bobby Gold for this one because you're seeing Santonio Holmes, you're seeing Devin Hester, you're seeing a lot of great talents. Henry Ruggs, I like a lot of these names I'm seeing up there, but shouts out to Bobby Gold because it brings up a good point. Assuming that he doesn't like Lamborghinis and speeding, these are some really good comps for Jaylin Lane because you do have some speed demons that are unfortunately speed demons on and off the field. Hopefully Jaylin Lane isn't like that. He seems like he's the perfect Dan Quinn, Adam Peters type of guy, though he has the commander's tag to where you definitely don't have to worry about that type of stuff. But just my point is the athletic profile behind him is insane. And then also shouts out the Commanders realm. He brings up a good point. The Skins took Crowder, 105th overall 10 years ago. Similar assumption coming out of college was a punt returner, but obviously turned into a very productive pass catcher. We'll see if Lane can replicate that, and I believe he will. I mean, again, look at his athleticism in terms of relative athletic score. That you got to see it to completely understand it and grasp it, which is why I think he's ultimately not only going to be a better returner than Jamison Crowder, because he's just far quicker, far faster, far more agile and everything like that. I also think he's going to be a better receiver as well. I think he's ultimately going to be more productive as a receiver than Jamison Crowder ever was as well. I'm very high on Jaylin Lane. I mean, he had a 9.68 and he tested terribly when it came to size. And I still feel like 190 pounds isn't bad for a receiver, but I can see why they feel like barely 5'10", poor grade. But the explosion, elite. Agility, elite. Speed, elite. Not good, not great. Elite in all three major categories. And so then you take that athlete, which is an elite one, mind you, not a great one, an elite athlete, and then you add the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, he is about to wear 3 hats for us. 3 birds, 1 stone. Your starting slot receiver, I believe. I'm sorry, Luke McCaffrey, but this boy Jaylin Lane, he got it. And then he's going to be our best deep threat opposite of Terry McLaurin by replacing De'Ami Brown. But again, a much faster version of De'Ami Brown. And he'll be your starting punt and kick returner. I wouldn't be surprised if Jakori is one of our starting kick returners and Jaylin Lane's the other one, while Jaylin Lane is also your starting punt returner. That is an elite return unit right there. Way better than anything we had last year. Even though I love Austin Eckler back there, but he's not as quick or fast as these guys. And he also had the injury concern problem. And also, Jaylin Lane is easily our fastest and most explosive returner that we've had since Brandon Banks, easily. And even after all of that, this guy's also diet Deebo Samuel with how much he was used for screens, reverses, sweeps, all of that behind the line of scrimmage gadgety stuff that we love Curtis Samuel for being able to do. All of that Deebo Samuel type of stuff, Jaylin Lane is that. This guy missed like a bunch of tackles. I forgot the number, but he forced a lot of missed tackles to the level of like running backs. Like he was being compared to running backs, not wide receivers, running backs when it came to how many forced missed tackles that he had at his career at Virginia Tech, man. He runs through arm tackles. You're not going to be able to tackle him with your arms. You got to square up on him literally as if he's a running back. It's actually really insane, man. This guy has so much potential to him. I'm sick at how much I see fans disappointed in the selection, man. I'm so sure by the time the preseason gets going, though, a lot of the fans that don't love this pick will come around, because both him and Jakori, I'm telling y'all right now, they're going to ball out and embarrass a lot of those backups in the preseason, man. Just like that East-West Shrine Bowl where it's like, why is Jakori here? This guy's way too talented to be here. I think when these guys are out there with the backups, because they are rookie draft picks, so they're going to play out there with a lot of the backups in preseason, it's going to be like, why are these guys that are clear starting level players, Pro Bowl potential talents maybe even, out here with these backups? I'm telling y'all right now, they're going to put up some ridiculous highlights in the preseason. And now imagine if Jaylin Lane, what he's going to be doing the difference going from those 3 Virginia Tech quarterbacks that threw him passes last year to going to Jaden Daniels, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL already, Jaden Daniels. He's going to have even better stats in the NFL than he had in college. I'm telling you right now, he's going to be one of those guys where the NFL is easier than him in college, because the offense, Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator, Jaden Daniels is your quarterback. This offensive line, having Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel and Noah Brown, on the field is you, so defenses can't focus on solely stopping you. I'm telling you right now, the NFL is going to feel a little bit easier to him than the college did, in pretty much every way except for probably getting open on his own. And I also don't think people understand how impactful his return ability is going to be for this team. Instead of starting offensive possessions within our only our 30-yard line most of the time, this guy's gonna have it starting at like the 40 or 50 pretty often, and may even return some punts back for touchdowns like he did at Virginia Tech. And that's dangerous for an offense that already is this unstoppable. Plus, you just gave Jaden Daniels a way better offense around him, offensive line, weapons, and all of that. Jaden Daniels with better starting field positioning, that's a scary thought for opponents, man. If I'm opponents, I hate the fact that the Commanders just got Jaylin Lane. And lastly, like I mentioned in my full breakdown of him after we drafted him, This guy's going to turn Cliff Kingsbury into a madman. We're going to see a lot of stuff that fan bases around the NFL were jealous of the Lions with Ben Johnson last year. This man, Jaylin Lane, in just this last season alone, just one season, 2024. Now, of course, he caught a touchdown. He's a wide receiver. You expect that. He also ran for one as like a running back gadget type of guy, like a Deebo Samuel, like I already mentioned. He also returned a punt for a touchdown. And he also threw a touchdown pass as well as like a quarterback on a trick play. Cliff Kingsbury is probably already drawing up some plays that we never saw last year just because Jaylin Lane is now on the team. I'm telling y'all, a lot of y'all that are low on this pick right now, y'all are going to be very high on it very soon. And so after all of that, even though we only drafted 5 players, we only had 5 draft picks, I still think that this draft was undeniably an A- at worst. I love our draft, but I reserve A+ for like impossibly great drafts. I feel like we had 2 or 3 more picks, and what we did with those 5 picks, we would have done the same thing with those additional 2 or 3. Maybe it would have been an A+, but like the Ravens somehow getting 2 top 15 talents and Malachi Starks and Mike Green in the same draft, those are A+. The Patriots got a lot of players that I really love, that at least my big board wise, I'm jealous of the guys that they got. That's an A+. I mean, they had a million picks and got a lot of the players that I really wanted. So, I mean, but what we had to work with, and again, including Marshawn Lattimore, Laremy Tunsil, and Deebo Samuel, this is an easy A- at worst for me. With me leaning towards more of an A just off of the fact that we got Jakori in the 7th. That may just take it from an A- to an A by itself. So I honestly believe that we may for real end up, I think he's going to be the biggest steal of the draft. I mean, again, to me, he's a bigger and more athletic Bucky Irving to me. But now, for other people's opinions and thoughts, real quick, to see what I agree or disagree with, just real quick. Shouts out to Brian Manning of Commanders Wire again. I have not seen these yet. I just saw the title, 6 key Commanders takeaways from the Commanders 2025 NFL Draft. He said the Commanders lack a specific athletic profile. We already pointed that out. He also pointed out quality over quantity. I agree with that. He said this offseason was all about Jaden Daniels. I agree with that as well. Peters is solidifying premium positions. Now, that's an interesting one. I didn't bring that up, but that's a good point. Quarterback, offensive tackle, the quarterback's blind side, cornerback, and edge rusher. Literally all but the edge rusher were solidified in this draft because, I mean, we didn't take a quarterback, but you already have that guy, and you just made him way better and way safer with the way that you just went about this offseason. And he also said the Commanders like their edge rushers. Now, I think I slightly disagree there because I think they are okay with their edge rushers, but you saw with all of the guys we brought in for top 30 visits we met with at the combine, and even all of this rumored and reported interest that we have in Von Miller and Zadarius Smith right now, I don't think they really like their edge rushers, but I think they're okay with them if we have to go into the season with the guys we already have. Now, shouts out to @Commanders Realm. He said to summarize his thoughts of the draft. And mind you, this was like immediately at like April 26th at 7 p.m. He said it wasn't flashy, but it was efficient. I think it was pretty flashy. Again, getting 2 first-round talents with a round 1 and round 2 pick, I feel like is quite flashy, but I understand. He said, I felt like they filled multiple needs while also very clearly sticking to their board. I agree. The most glaring needs heading into the draft were edge, outside corner, O-line, and speed on offense. They got 3 out of the 4. I agree. All of them but edge. I like that they didn't trade out. They liked the guys that were available when they were on the clock and felt quality was better than quantity. I agree. I would have absolutely preferred if they addressed pass rusher, but they don't seem to be as concerned about it as we are. I would agree with that, but again, I wouldn't go as far as saying that they just feel like they're done. I'm pretty sure they're still looking around at veterans like Von Miller, like I already talked about yesterday. And he also said when you have number 5, everything else just becomes a bonus. You don't have to have the flashiest draft when you have one of the league's most dominant players, and I firmly agree with that. Then shouts out to @JDanielsMVP. He said the major takeaway from this free agency and draft so far is that the offense will be very elite. I agree. Solidified the O-line for our franchise quarterback, which should also help the running game. Added more weapons like Deebo Samuel and Jaylin Lane. And I mean, to Josh Connolly's point, just to go back to him real quick, how he makes the team better, even outside of the offensive line. He has some of the best footwork and mobility that I've seen of a tackle coming out of the draft in a few years. If arguably the best, honestly. So Deebo Samuel's going to be better because that boy Josh Connolly is going to be in front of him on screens at the next level, pancaking and completely moving linebackers and DBs out the way, rather than Andrew Wiley, who I like. I feel like he's still fairly underrated amongst the fan base, but Andrew Wiley's slow self and unathletic self. He's athletic, but he's not Josh Connolly. Josh Connolly out in front of Jaden Daniels on a speed option, in front of Deebo Samuel on a screen, that's gonna make Deebo Samuel so much better than if we didn't get Josh Connolly. Also, defenses got better in areas like the secondary where the cornerback unit looks solid with Jonathan Jones and Trey Amos added. I agree. The biggest question is still edge rusher. I agree. They added size at the D-line, which should help stop the run more efficiently than last year. Again, like I said, with what we did in free agency, I think we're gonna go from dead last, 32nd, the worst run stop team in the NFL to I think at least top 10. I think we did that much as far as stopping the run through free agency additions just last month. But also, how will they be able to rush to get to the quarterback? Is Trey Hendrickson a trade still an option on the table? Do they acquire a free agency like a Zadarius Smith or a Von Miller or Matthew Judon? We'll see. And again, there's been reported interest there. He also said after the draft was officially done, he said they solidified the O-line for the face of the franchise by adding Laramie Tunsil, Josh Connolly, and other key depth pieces. I think Nate Herbig is a very underrated signing amongst his fan base. He also said another point, got Jaden Daniels more weapons like Debo, Jaylin Lane, Jakori, and re-signed important pieces such as Zach Ertz, John Bates, Noah Brown, and others. I agree. He said significantly improved the cornerback room with adding Trey Amos, Jonathan Jones, and other pieces while also re-signing Noah Benogany, and also kept the coaching staff and important guys like Marcus Mariota and Bobby Wagner back for another season. I think all of those are important. And then also shouts out to MV Scouting. This is the last one. He said, I cannot understate how much better Washington already really good special teams unit from last year just got. Lane is a punt returner upgrade. Madrano is a dude built for the specials life like a Nick Ballore. And I think JCM could be a really good kickoff returner under the new rules, which makes them more run play-esque than a few years ago before they changed the kick return rules. It was better to have more receiver type speedy fast guys. Now vision matters. Now a running back type like Austin Eckler, who before he got hurt at a certain point in that season, you could argue he was one of the best kick returners in the NFL. He was a running back. I think Jakori is literally that, but more explosive, faster, quicker, all of that. So I agree. And then also, even after this tweet, we went and got Matt Gay as a kicker to replace Zane Gonzalez. So our special teams unit, who again, to MV Scouting's point, I completely agree, was already, I think, top 8 last year. It's already way better going into this year, returner and kicker wise. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. I really appreciate y'all, man. If you made it this far in the video, I'm 53 minutes into recording. Salute to you. And again, as I guess somewhat of a reward, even though this trivia, I wouldn't say it sucks as far as I love the answer. I just hate how predictable it was. Of course, the answer was the Hogs. I really appreciate y'all for making it this far in the video. I salute you. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. And most importantly, this is one of those videos that once I get a little bit of free time, I really want to get to the comment section and see how y'all feel about this one. So let me know how you would grade the draft, your breakdowns of it, the still of our draft class, the sleeper of our draft class amongst the fan bases like I did, who's your favorite pick, your worst, all that type of stuff. But of course, mostly, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the points that I brought up. Do you agree or disagree with my grade, the reasoning behind my grade, all of that type of stuff? And I really appreciate y'all. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.